When I first landed in Korea, I had never seen anything like this.
From the ashes of war and poverty, South Korea, a nation that rose to become one of the world's most powerful economies. In the 50s, it was a nation struggling to survive, with cities in ruins and population grappling with hunger. Yet, within a few decades, it transformed into a global powerhouse, dominating industries from technology to entertainment. How did this astonishing transformation happen? What role did government strategy and controversial policies play in shaping the nation's rise? And what were the hidden costs behind its success? In the aftermath of the Korean War, which took place between 1950 and 1953, South Korea faced the daunting task of rebuilding from the ruins of conflict. The nation was predominantly agrarian, with limited industrial infrastructure and scarce natural resources. Cities were in shambles, and the economy was in a devastating state. The war's ending did not bring relief. Instead, it brought in the challenge of rebuilding a nation from scratch. During the 1950s, South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world, with a largely agrarian economy and a population struggling with poverty and hunger. The government's initial attempts to stimulate growth through import substitution proved largely ineffective. Though they aimed to replace foreign imports with domestic production, yet growth remained sluggish, and the people saw little improvement in their living conditions. The South Korea from the 1950s was very different from the South Korea known to the world today. How did South Korea begin its economic rebuilding process, and what were the initial challenges the country faced? A turning point came in 1961 when General Park Chung-hee led a military coup, seizing power and setting the stage for a radical transformation of the country's economy. Park's regime was authoritarian by nature, but it was also pragmatic. Understanding the need for rapid economic development, his government launched a series of aggressive 5-year plans aimed to industrializing the country. These plans emphasized export-oriented industrialization, infrastructure development, and the mobilization of a disciplined labor force. Now, unlike many other countries that tried to develop through self-sufficiency, South Korea focused on export-led growth. The government identified key sectors where the country could gain a competitive advantage, starting with light industries such as textile and plywood. These industries were labor-intensive and benefited from South Korea's large and relatively cheap workforce. As factories sprouted and production increased, there was a mass migration from rural areas to urban centers. The government did not just stop at promoting industrial production. It heavily invested in building infrastructure, roads, bridges, ports, and power plants. These investments lowered production costs, boosted efficiency, and created a more favorable environment for businesses to thrive. Now, to understand how they carried on with this process, we must take a look at their education system that they used in order for it to be fulfilled. Education played a crucial role in this transformation. The government placed a strong emphasis on improving primary and secondary education, ensuring that the workforce was not just large but also skilled. This emphasis on education laid the groundwork for South Korea's transition from labor-intensive industries to more complex sectors such as heavy industries, including steel and petrochemicals. You see, the government's approach to heavy industry was quite unique. By recognizing that private entrepreneurs lacked the resources to undertake such massive ventures, the state took on the financial risk. It financed and spearheaded the development of industries that would become the backbone of South Korean economy. Also central to South Korea's economic strategy was the rise of the chaebols. You might recognize chaebols from large family-owned conglomerates like Samsung, LG, and Hyundai. These conglomerates at the beginning received substantial government support in the form of subsidies, loans, and tax incentives. Of course, in return, they were expected to focus on exports and drive the nation's industrial growth. The symbiotic relationship between the government and the chaebols facilitated rapid industrial growth. By the 1970s and 1980s, South Korea had diversified its industrial base, producing everything from textiles to automobiles and electronics. The nation's GDP grew exponentially, and living standards improved markedly. However, this rocketing rise was not without its challenges. As chaebols grew in size and influence, naturally, they began to dominate the South Korean economy. The concentration of economic power within a few conglomerates also sowed the seeds for future challenges, such as corruption, monopolistic practices, and the stifling of competition. The government's heavy-handed control over the economy, while effective in driving growth, also stifled dissent and led to human rights abuses. Despite their contributions to economic growth, chaebols have been at the center of numerous corruption scandals. These scandals have often involved intricate networks of bribery, embezzlement, and political collusion, undermining public trust and highlighting systematic issues within the nation's corporate and political spheres. One of the most notorious corruption cases in South Korean history is the Hyundai scandal from the late 1990s. What happened was, Hyundai Steel, the country's second-largest steelmaker, collapsed under a massive debt in 1997. You see, investigations had revealed that Hyundai secured approximately $6 billion in loans through bribery and preferential treatment, implicating senior government officials and bankers. The scandal not only led to significant financial losses, but also exposed the vulnerabilities in South Korea's financial system and the perils of unchecked corporate expansion. Another significant case was the Daewoo dissolution and corruption scandal. Once the country's second-largest conglomerate, Daewoo's bankruptcy in 1999 unveiled extensive accounting fraud and embezzlement orchestrated by its own executives. However, amidst the fallout, one company stood resilient and continued to shape the nation's economic future: Samsung. Samsung, often regarded as the crown jewel of South Korea's economy, has not been immune to controversy. In 2017, Lee Jae-yong, the heir to the Samsung empire, was convicted of bribery and embezzlement in connection with a national corruption scandal that led to the impeachment of President Park. Lee's conviction shed light on the pervasive influence of chaebols in South Korean politics and the challenges of enforcing corporate governance. More recently, in 2024, South Korean prosecutors sought a 5-year prison sentence for Lee Jae-yong in an appeals case regarding a controversial merger of Samsung affiliates. Of course, this ongoing legal battle underscores the persistent scrutiny of chaebols and their governance practices. Now, in order to understand the economic growth of South Korea, it's important to understand the economic liberalization and globalization process. In the 1980s, as the economy matured, the government began to liberalize the market. Restrictions on imports and foreign investments were eased, allowing for more competition and innovation. The chaebols were given greater autonomy, which helped them evolve into global brands known for their technological prowess and quality products. But South Korea's rise wasn't just about economic policies and industrial strategies. It was also about the people, hard-working, resilient, and innovative. The emphasis on education continued to bear fruit, with a significant portion of the population achieving higher education levels. This educated workforce became the driving force behind South Korea's advances in technology and innovation. You see, the country did not stop at heavy industries. By the late 20th century, South Korea was making strides in cutting-edge fields such as biotechnology, robotics, fine chemicals, and aerospace. The government and private sector invested heavily in research and development, ensuring that South Korea stayed ahead in the race for technological supremacy. Despite the Asian financial crisis of the late 1990s, South Korea weathered the storm better than most of its neighbors and emerged stronger, more competitive, and more determined to solidify its place on the global stage. Today, South Korea is a leading global economy known for its advancements in technology, automotive manufacturing, consumer electronics, and cultural exports. It is a member of the OECD and the G20, with a standard of living that rivals that of many Western countries. But this remarkable journey was not without its darker moments. The authoritarian regime of Park Chung-hee, while instrumental in South Korea's economic success, was marked by political repression and human rights abuses. The government's close ties with the chaebols led to corruption and cronyism. The focus on rapid industrialization came at the cost of environmental degradation and social inequalities. The intertwining of economic and political interests has led to significant political upheavals. In 2016, 2009, a massive corruption scandal involving President Park and her close confidant, Choi Soon-sil, rocked the nation. The scandal revealed that Choi had used her relationship with the president to extort millions of dollars from chaebols, including Samsung, in exchange for political favors. The public outrage culminated in mass protests, leading to Park's impeachment and removal from office in 2017. This event was a significant moment in South Korea's democratic evolution, highlighting the public's intolerance for corruption and the demand for transparency. Similarly, in January 2025, South Korea witnessed another unprecedented political event. President Yoon became the first sitting South Korean president to be arrested amidst an investigation over alleged insurrection. Yoon's troubles included various scandals and political confrontations, notably imposing martial law in December 2024, which again led to his impeachment. Although resistant at first, Yoon submitted to arrest to avoid bloodshed, maintaining his stance against the warrant. The concentration of economic power within chaebols and the recurring corruption scandals have elicited public outcry and demands for reform. Wealth disparity, high living costs, and youth unemployment are pressing issues that fuel societal discontent. While the younger generation propels the nation's technological advancements, there is a growing call for a more inclusive economic model. Now, despite South Korea's remarkable economic growth, the road to prosperity has been fraught with challenges and ongoing struggles for social justice. As South Korea navigates its future, it must grapple with these issues, balancing economic growth with social equity, innovation, sustainability, and power with accountability. The question now is, how can South Korea address these challenges to build a more inclusive and sustainable future? Thank you for watching our video. If you have any thoughts, make sure to share them in the comment section. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell.